Porta potties feel like a thing that's specific to construction workers. If you've been on the inside of one of these, you also just kind of know how to use a cement mixer. Potty Racer. As you can expect, this thing has a lot of literal potty humor. I would say this would date the game, but as long as kids still exist, potty humor will still be relevant. What does make the game feel kind of old is the fact that the main guy is a stickman. Remember that period of time where like 25% of the internet was just stick people? I mean, some of those guys are still around, but they were everywhere at one point. The simplistic art style was a low barrier of entry, but you can develop it into something beautiful. The first game is quite basic. It came into the launcher genre near its beginning. It wasn't the first launcher. Turns out, the title of first launcher is in a bit of contention, but I think Hedgehog launch by JMTB02 is the most likely. We zoom down a slide-shaped hill and jump, then see how far we go. We slowly get more money to get better parts to gear out our potty. We glue fancier looking stuff onto it, and we eventually complete all 4 hills. Along the way, you buy tricks. Tricks help in getting more money, but you quickly learn that they don't do that much. The most important part of earning money is the multiplier at the end, which is incredibly inconsistent. However, if you land mid-trick, you will crash out, and that's a guaranteed way to have a very low multiplier. Because of how confusing the jump multiplier is, trick money can be ignored. You don't really do that much after takeoff. You steady yourself so the potty doesn't end up crashing, and after you buy a rocket, you do a little bit of boosting. But when not a plane, you can't control your speed in a meaningful way. There isn't a reason to go up or down and nothing is in the air. It's an incredibly simplistic game with a premise that clearly started as a quick joke. The upgrade system is standard, and our main goal is to chase numbers. Well, chasing numbers can be used to describe most games, but some are a bit more open about it than others, and this game keeps no secrets. But hey, it's like half an hour at the most to play all of it, and for the time period, I'm pretty sure it kept a good amount of people entertained. Although, I am honestly shocked that sequels are made. But I respect the commitment to the bit, and also respect the fact that the sequels ended up kind of good. Potty Racer 2. We are now building planes. The progression has been overhauled. There's an attempt to make the porta potty actually look kind of cool with the plane parts. Each area has a certain type of plane attached to it. When entering a new zone, the plane parts get ditched, so you have to buy up a new plane. But you keep the money you earn, so buying the second and beyond plane will end up being a way faster process than buying the first plane. Money is far more consistent here. There's no weird multiplier based on the whims of a very filthy god. We're flying over water this time, so you don't need to worry about mistiming a trick and causing a crash, because all landings crash and it doesn't affect anything. Well, we do need to land sometimes, but only when you go the required distance to get to the next area. There's good improvements all around. A core identity has started to form, and gameplay has solidified into something worth playing. There's a good contrast in the innate silliness of riding a porta potty and turning that into legitimately cool looking jets. Because we are now planes, we actually have to fly and deal with air physics. I actually had to somewhat control the potty to maximize the distance. If I didn't, I wouldn't have enough biofuel to touch solid ground and would not be able to progress. Also, make sure you have enough money when entering a new area, cause it can be quite a slog if you don't. The game is fast-paced, but the start is a bit slow. It might take a while to get to the plane parts, but once that's over, the other islands will be a breeze, and the game ends with us landing on the moon. This was better than I thought it would be, still kind of short. So they just did this again, but made it slightly too long. Potty Racer 3. Oh damn, there's a lot of stuff here. The baseline is still similar to the second game, but the scope has been expanded. We're still going from zone to zone, and our ship parts still get told to leave in each new area. However, we keep some of our upgrades this time around. We're no longer going between islands. We eventually get to space, and our final quest is Uranus. The biggest new mechanic is item pickups. The sky is littered with stuff now. Stars to collect EXP, different potty types to collect cash, and flames to boost your ship. We have levels now. What does that do? Well, some things are locked behind a certain level, and that's it. The floating toilets are this game's main way to make money. You get some cash for just going the distance, but that gets absolutely dwarfed by the shiny toilets. The flame is most relevant to actually flying. We're very reliant on hitting flames to win. It sounds like that would be RNG dependent, but not as much as you would think. You get larger ships as you progress, and the hitboxes increase in size too. Not just that, the tricks you do seem to move the ship and makes collecting power-ups easier. Although you can sometimes accidentally dodge them with a trick, but it seems to mostly help. Look at some of these 3D models. Pacing is about the same as 2. The beginning is a bit slow, especially now because the sea creature death cutscenes have become unskippable, but once you get past that point, it goes by quick. I finished certain areas in one launch. You can snowball so much. Well, until you get to space anyway. New space-specific upgrades become available. We have to deal with space debris, and it feels a bit like the first zone again, but in space. And then we snowball in a similar fashion. The final area ends up taking like 2 launches to finish. We made it to Uranus. We get greeted with a butt joke, and the beings of Uranus teleport us back to Earth. The end. That was fun, but some of the individual launches dragged on a bit longer than they needed to. Also, it does sometimes feel a bit out of your control. I would like to note that I think a good portion of this game was inspired by Flight. The launcher genre has been around for a while at this point. A lot of them were inspired by Potty Racer, but a lot of them had also outgrown Potty Racer. So they took inspiration from a game that they themselves had influence. You love to see it. This is how genres develop and grow, and it's also how new genres form. In this case, the genre hit a dead end, but the point still stands. I think this series was supposed to end as a trilogy. I mean, the potty game goes to Uranus. What else are you supposed to add to that? But a fair amount of years later, Potty Racer 4 came out. Ironically, the art style has been cleaned up a bit. It looks less amateur and more stylish in the vague sense of the 2 words I just used. The Potty Racer has long since retired, and his adventures in space are just a fading memory. But he gets his hands on his old porta potty and decides to go on a world tour. We've backed down from the super ships and are once again gluing random things onto our blue box. Honestly, the art style makes this kind of charming. Also, it's clearly going to scale back up into the ships once we get to the other parts of Earth. The skies are still filled with power-ups, but they are slightly different now. We now get all our money from collecting. Fuel cans refuel our ship, and poo orbs are a new mechanic. Tricks are no longer free. They now cost poo orbs to perform, and instead of giving us money, tricks activate abilities. The strongest ability by far is the magnet, which sucks all nearby collectibles to you. This includes poo orbs, so you can infinitely chain this trick quite easily. Combine this with fuel cans, and launches can last quite a while if you're lucky enough. We don't progress forwards from distance requirements anymore. We now need to aim for and collect the stars attached to local landmarks. The first zone is North America, and the 3 levels are New England, vaguely California, and vaguely Mexico. Once we complete that, we move on to... oh, that's it. The map at the start implied all of Earth, but I guess this was more of a demo. Potty Racer 4 is the most polished one yet, but it's clearly unfinished. So, did it ever come out, or... Nope, nothing I could find. Gonzo Games' website just turned up a blank screen. So, yeah, I'm done here. Okay, so one more video about launchers.